Patrick, what do you think of this truck next to me?
It looks like another.
What's it doing?
It looks like another truck delivering death in the form of sugar and ultra-processed foods, really. It's extraordinary what we eat. No wonder that humanity's brain is shrinking. I mean, this is an absolute
That
fact,
is,
you know, worth knowing, because 30,000 years ago, our brain size was up to 1.7 kilograms, and it's actually dropped to 1.33 kilograms. We've lost about 20% of brain matter, and it's going much faster, and it's because of the food we are eating largely.
exactly. And we have some of the first data that shows that probably the first time in evolutionary history that human intelligence is actually moving backwards, not forwards. And that's linked to our modern lives and our shrinking brains and our state of brain inflammation.
I think that's been
a chronic problem.
That's been happening since the 70s, and we all know the 70s was when we really switched, into carbs away from fat. Big mistake. And the other thing that
Ansel Keys, thank you very much.
Ansel Keys, thank you very much. I mean, the thing that is really extraordinary, a couple of weeks ago in Lancet Neurology, is a major worldwide global study which basically shows that disability from neurological or brain diseases or mental health affects 43% of the world's population. We're talking about 3.4 billion people. And meanwhile, the Children's Society reported in the last 3 years a tripling in the numbers of referrals to the NHS. And the Times exposed that 2/3 of all claims for benefits are for mental health. This year, for the first time, we're going to go over 100 million prescriptions for antidepressants, approximately 1 in 5 people, 1 million of which are for teenagers. The European Federation of Neuroscientists has declared a brain health emergency. The cost of mental health exceeds all of cancer and heart disease. At one end, we've got Alzheimer's, which is a preventable disease. Less than 1% is actually caused by genes. This is the presenilin or AP gene. And it's about time we took charge of our mental health and our nutrition. And until nutrition and brain health are absolutely at the top of the health agenda, at the moment, they're not even on the agenda, we are going to see a continuing shrinkage of brain, reduction in IQ, loss of connection, more aggression, bad decisions, etc. And if there is any time when we need intelligence to solve the problems that humanity is facing, it is right now.
Patrick, many people see these various mental health issues, from depression, anxiety through to Alzheimer's, and even other neurological problems like Parkinson's, as very discrete silos of disease. Mm-hmm. But they do have common links. What are those linkages?
No, they're massively common, and these problems don't just sort of pop out of nowhere. Basically, we actually had a summit, a conference last week in Upgrade Your Brain. We got together the best professors, the top neuroscientists, neurologists, psychiatrists, etc. in the world, and collectively we agreed that there are 4 biological drivers of this mental health meltdown. I call them the 4 horsemen of the mental health apocalypse. The first one is brain fats. There is absolutely no question that it is this loss of omega-3 and marine foods, particularly, which are also rich in vitamin D, also rich in phospholipids. We could not have become human without a significant intake of both omega-3, DHA, and also arachidonic acid, which is omega-6 that comes from the plant side as well. We had to have both. And it's very clear that we grew our brains from 350 grams of a chimpanzee up to 1,700 grams through a change of nutrition. In other words, we were the waterside ape. We lived on estuaries and rivers and so on, and had this very high marine food diet. So brain fats, horseman number 1. Number 2 is methylation. This is to do with B vitamins. And if you had to pick one, it would be B12, which is very rich in seafoods, because a lot of people, especially after age 50 or 60, are malabsorbing B12. It's in meat, fish, eggs, and milk. It's not so much a what's in your diet question, it's how much are you absorbing. And one of the most terrible drugs that is driving this is omeprazole. In other words, these antacid drugs, because what they do is they stop you making stomach acid. And we know that 4 years use of omeprazole will increase your risk of developing dementia or Alzheimer's by about a third. It's quite significant. So B12 is very important. Then we have sugar. And in a way, what's important is that those two, what we've learned is to build a healthy brain, you have to literally, the membrane is made out of omega-3 bound to phospholipids, very rich in eggs. So here's another terrible piece of advice we've had: don't eat eggs. Eggs and fish are the main source of phospholipids. The binding is done by horseman number 2, which is a process called methylation. Methylation depends on B vitamins, like B12. And what we've learned is that omega-3, given in studies to people with pre-dementia, does not work in those with poor methylation, lack of B vitamins, which is indicated by a blood test of homocysteine. It's very, very simple. And what's really pained me so much is how inaccessible this test has been made. So I'm very pleased at the charity we've actually cracked that code, and we now have a kit that we send people. They prick their finger, measure the homocysteine. I did it. Mine was 7, which is perfect. My wife's was 15. Above 10, you've got accelerated brain shrinkage. She wasn't very happy, took the B vitamins that lower it. 3 months later, she's absolutely fine, and you can tell it. She's really firing on all cylinders. So number 2. Number 3 is fuel. So those two are structure of the brain. Number 3 is fuel, the fuel supply. And the irony is the more sugar and carbs you've eaten in your life, the more resistant you become to insulin. So you actually cannot get the glucose into your brain. So excess glucose, excess sugar, and also fructose, by the way, in fruit juices, leads to sugar starvation in the brain. The brain doesn't work. You can't concentrate. You lose your memory. And that's where a lot of these more ketotherapeutic, ketogenic diets, and we know about these MCT oils like C8, that's where they really kick in. Because if you've got messed up sugar metabolism in your brain and you switch to ketones, it sort of fills the energy gap and you can come back to life a bit. Dr. George Eade's been fantastic on this. Professor Stephen Cunnaine's work is superb. So that's number 3. And number 4 is whenever you're generating energy, whether it's from glucose or ketones, you're always making oxidants. And of course, we ultimately die because of oxidation. That's why our skin looks older and so on. I mean, I'm 66. I definitely look older than I did when I was 50 or 40. That is the process of oxidation. It's unstoppable, but it's very, very much slowed downable. And that is why smoking is a risk factor. And that's why pollution is a risk factor. And that's why, eating lots of antioxidant-rich foods and vitamin C, by the way, is, we know from many studies on vitamin C, supplementing vitamin C reduces risk for dementia. Eating a lot of antioxidant-rich foods, blueberries, I think we've heard about that one, reduces risk for dementia. So that's like the 4th horseman, and something really fascinating that people don't get. And I gave you the example of the B vitamins being essential for omega-3 to work. And the same is also true the other way around. The B vitamins do not work if you don't have enough omega-3. Is that pollution is a risk factor for dementia unless your homocysteine is low, which means you're doing methylation well, which means you've got sufficient B vitamins. So we get these interactions. And if you just stop and think about it, I mean, the same is true, for example, with sleep. Lack of sleep is a risk factor, poor sleep, but not if you do a lot of exercise. So the point is that at the moment, the sort of latest study, which was done by our group, based on the UK Biobank data, said that if we tackled everything we know from the UK Biobank data, we could prevent up to 73% of cases of dementia. But number 1, that's an underestimate because they never measured homocysteine. And that homocysteine B vitamin factor was rated by NIH, National Institute of Health, as 22% of the risk. You can't exactly add 22 to 73%, but it's significant. But the next thing is that all the studies on B vitamins or omega-3 or pollution or smoking or whatever have just looked at a sort of homogenous group of people. It may be that, smoking is a big promoter of dementia, but much less than people who have vitamin C. We already learned that, B vitamins reduce risk, but only if you've got enough omega-3. So the point is that whatever figure we've got for a particular impact preventing, it's going to be more than that when you start to understand the interactions. I've had the last 7 years working with the top professors from Harvard University, University of Washington, Rutgers University, Oxford University, Fudan University in China, and so on and so on and so on. So it was great for me to write my new book, Upgrade Your Brain, because I've been able. I'm the jack of all trades. They're the masters, right? And when you read the book, Upgrade Your Brain, it is immensely clear that you absolutely do not need to get Alzheimer's. I mean, as you read through, you go, oh my God, that halves my risk, that halves my risk, that. But by the time you get to the end, you realize you reduce your risk by like 2,000%, which of course is crazy sort of thing. So that's the point, putting all the pieces
together. Patrick, this is ultimately a communication problem. This is a communication problem. The information is there.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I've got a huge respect for the work that you've been doing, bringing the scientists together. Patrick, you excel in the world of communication. It's Dementia Awareness Week next week.
Yes.
Presumably, you've got all the charities on board to help you with communication.
Well, I mean, here is the remarkable thing, because what we've actually done is we've approached all the world's leading professors in aspects of dementia prevention. And every single one, without exception, has joined this democratic team of scientists. Together, we have created Alzheimer's Prevention Day, bang in the middle of Dementia Awareness Week, because we believe the one thing you need to be aware of is that it's preventable. Less than 1% are caused by genes. And even those with the Alzheimer gene presenilin app do much, much better. In other words, progress much more slowly if they do the same things. So it's wrong to say that they are destined, to a particular route of action. We got them all together. We created this website, alzheimersprevention.info. And in it, we've done a 3-minute check. It's 30 questions, bip, 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 bip. Shows you where you need to pay attention. Every expert has done a 3-minute film on something: sleep, alcohol, B vitamins, omegas, keto diets, carbs, like Rob Lustig's is keep dessert for dessert. It's all there. And we then approached the Alzheimer's Society, whose remit is to educate people about prevention. We approached Alzheimer's Research UK, whose remit is to educate people about prevention. We approached Dementia UK, whose main function is to support carers and relatives of people with dementia. And Dementia UK, what are you doing on prevention? They said, nothing. Maybe you can help us. We look after the carers. And I said, well, how about promoting Alzheimer's Prevention Day to the carers? They said, not our bag. I said, you mean that people who have a relative with Alzheimer's are not scared that they may get it, thinking it's in the genes? I mean, we can help them, even if we can't help the people who are in full-blown Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's Society said we don't do prevention. We leave that to Alzheimer's Research UK. Alzheimer's Research UK said we spent 5% of our research on prevention. So hang on a second. 80% is preventable. At the most conservative estimate, half. And you're spending 5%. Could I have a look at it? And I did. And there were 10 studies, and actually only 5 could arguably be non-drug prevention. So the reality is the figure is probably 2 or 3%. Would you guys like to take part in Alzheimer's Prevention Day? Would you like a free ticket to this conference, this summit, where we recorded the world's leading top professor experts? Is there someone in your group who would like to know? No, nothing at all. So we're it's crazy, but that's the truth. Shocking, really, isn't it?
And the truth is related to capture by the drug companies, essentially, isn't it? That's the driver. There is no overwhelming desire to get involved in lifestyle, nutrition, unpatented approaches.
Look, it's lip service. They'll say eat a well-balanced diet. And when Alzheimer's Research UK, they launched this mini questionnaire, there's one question You know, do you eat a well-balanced diet? One question. Nothing on omega-3, nothing on B vitamins, nothing on, you know, it's really pathetic. And, you know, they say, keep your heart healthy, which means let's prescribe you some drugs, you know, avoid diabetes, let's prescribe you some drugs. But here's the irony, because the latest drugs like lecanemab showed no clinical benefit at all. It's just got to statistical significance on what's called the clinical dementia rating. Nobody got better. They just got a tiny bit less worse. 20% increased brain shrinkage in the drug group versus placebo group. Meanwhile, our guys giving B vitamins to people with sufficient omega-3, you know, the B vitamin omega-3 combo produced 73% less rate of brain shrinkage versus 20% more, produced 3 times more clinical dementia rating benefit, had a third of people end a year. So that the same trials, same type of randomized trials measuring exactly the same thing. And they got about a third, ended the year with no clinical dementia rating. In other words, they are no longer diagnosable with dementia. And same studies, you know, same designs, same journals. And in fact, one of the pharma guys came to one of our scientists at Oxford University and said, if this was a patentable drug, this is a multi-billion-dollar drug. So when you go to the ARUK website, it says, we exist for a cure. Here's the irony. They part-funded back in 2010 the study that I'm talking about. They know about it because they funded it. And now they completely deny it. And it, you know, you'll know this because I was just thinking about, you know, my kind of history through this. I remember in the 80s being amazed and shocked when Linus Pauling and his team did a study on vitamin C and HIV using infected human cells, vitamin C versus placebo or the big drug AZT. And it was phenomenal. And they then got funding to do a multi-center trial that would answer the question once and for all about vitamin C. Took years to set up, loads of money involved. And just before they're about to start, the plug got pulled. And then in the COVID time, you know, we did a lot of good work together. And thank you very much for all the supporters of Alliance for Natural Health. We got a study together with Aberdeen University, Roa Institute, really, really good, NHS in Scotland, NHS Grampian, to do the first ever study looking at vitamin C in care homes. First ever study. Beautiful study. We got all the money together. We got donations of equipment, the whole lot, ready to roll. Last minute, funds pulled. So right now, we have the most important study to do. And the man leading this is Professor Peter Garrard, top neurologist at St. George's. And it's a perfect study that will finally answer the question of if you have B vitamins and omega-3 versus placebo, can you stop somebody going from early pre-dementia, mild cognitive impairment into Alzheimer's? Perfect study, £3 million. That's all it takes. He's tried for 5 years, can't get the money. And here's the irony. There's just been a big release of the Geller Dementia Commission to really look at the flight path of people with dementia. And up there on the top table was the head of Alzheimer's Society, Kate Lee, and Professor Peter Garrard. And I said to Kate, you know, this was in a public meeting, given that half of all, at least half, it's more, of course, Alzheimer's is preventable, don't you think that at least half of the money should go to prevention research? And she agreed. And I said, how much have you got? And she said, 6 million. And I said, fantastic. And then I said to Peter Garrard, do you not think, of course I knew his study design, do you not think the most important single study we should do on prevention is the omega-3 and B vitamin studies? He said, you're absolutely right. I said, how much would it cost? He said, 3 million. I said, Kate, there it is. Big result immediately. You know, it's half of the money that you've got. Let's do it. It's as simple as that. It is as simple as that. When the government said, we're going to give 166 million a year to solve dementia, I guarantee you not one penny of that is being spent well. ARUK have recently got from Bill Gates and from the People's Lottery, in other words, your money, they've got 5 million to test a blood marker. So understand this. We know the amyloid drugs lower amyloid, but they don't work. So it's not a cause. Then there's this other thing that causes neurofibrillary tangles called p-tau. So it's a toxic protein. We all make tau. If it turns into p-tau, you get these tangles. How do you lower p-tau? Very easy. Lower your homocysteine, increase your B vitamins, reduce your sugar intake, increase your vitamin C, increase your antioxidants. We know how to get rid of p-tau. It's a bit like, you've got tooth decay, you've got plaque in your teeth, Is the plaque the cause? No, it's the diet that you eat that is the cause. So we know what makes p-tau go up. And of course, people with memory problems have more p-tau. So they're spending 5 million on 5,000 people. So that's £1,000 a pop to measure something which we know will be in people with memory problems, to turn around in a couple of years and say, wow, we found the marker. Right. We found the marker for dementia. It's called p-tau. And guess what? If your level is high, regardless of whether you've got a problem, we've got a drug to solve your problem. It's just like cholesterol and statins. Now, if you think about the logic of this, actually what diagnoses dementia, literally how you diagnose it, is with a cognitive function test. That's how you diagnose it. And you can pick up changes in a cognitive function test at least 30 years before a diagnosis. So why not, instead of having a blood test, just do a cognitive function test? And we have it. We got permission to digitize it, and we validated it. So at our website, foodforthebrain.org, you go in every day, 100 people are doing it. We've tested 420,000 people. So you don't need a blood test to diagnose who's going to get dementia. Just measure the thing that is dementia, which is cognitive function. It's there right now. And then the question, unlike, p-tau, now I need a drug for p-tau, is what's driving it? And then when you understand, it's the structure of the brain, the omegas and the B vitamins, the fuel supply, sugar, ketones, and so on, the oxidants that are created from burning fuel, and of course, smoking and pollution is not good. And then you have to use that network. You have to be active. Physically active, intellectually active, socially active. There's never going to be a drug.
No, exactly. That you're up against a paradigm that's very well set up to try and monopolize profits for pharma companies. The good news is that particularly since the COVID pandemic, it was a side effect of the pandemic, is that whole groups of health professionals and many of the public are alive to natural health in a way that they weren't before. They've seen that natural immunity, having a healthy diet, taking more physical activity is the way to go. And they didn't hear about this from health authorities or even their GPs. So this network is now together. You could say that we're in a better position than we've ever been to get this kind of information out. And I think a lot of people now no longer expect to see the information that really means life or death from them, from their health authorities. They are fully aware health authorities, governments, and obviously big pharma want to prescribe medicines and drugs. So they're going to look elsewhere. I think the extraordinary thing that has come together with Alzheimer's Prevention Day is that the experts are in one place. They are all talking about the same thing. There are some relatively simple things that people can do. You've in a way, you've said there's one RCT that hasn't been done, but of course there is ample evidence that the hypothesis suggests that combining B vitamins, because for years we were, based on your research and David Smith's research, many people have been taking high dose B vitamins, perhaps sometimes with or without EFAs. But now having that absolute evidence from an RCT, I'm not sure it'll make a difference to what the charities and what governments are saying, but at least we can communicate it through very, very wide networks now.
I think there are two really important, points, because overall, when I was sitting at this meeting of all these people who were talking about the tragedy, and it is a tragedy, of dementia, which, by the way, in 2022 was declared by the Office of National Statistics in the UK as the #1 killer. So it's the #1 killer, it's the #1 health cost, it's the #1 fear. There I was sitting in this meeting with people who are probably doing very good work, and charities doing good work, not in prevention, but in sort of taking care of people. And I felt like I was in the lemming hospital, all these lemmings falling out of the sky. There's this big waiting list of lemmings, and everyone's waiting for a cure and giving money for a cure, like we've seen with cancer. And I sort of, in my mind, I looked up the cliff, and there were a couple of radical lemmings who'd put up a sign, and the sign said, "Don't jump." So where we've got to is there are 8 things that we can do that are really straightforward, and we have a very nice graphic of this. One is to up your brain fats, omega-3, vitamin D, phospholipids, eat fish, eat eggs. If you don't eat fish, then supplement omega-3. You can get it vegan. Number 2, B vitamins. Absolutely make sure your homocysteine is low. It's actually a biomarker for 100 diseases, and pretty much every single mental health and neurological condition, from Parkinson's to motor neuron disease to ADHD to autism, you name it, it's there. That's number 2. Number 3, sort out your sugar. Eat a lower carb, lower GL diet. Number 4, increase your antioxidants, don't smoke. Number 5, healthy gut. And by the way, the gut starts in the mouth. So dental hygiene is really, really important. I mean, actually, flossing your teeth is a way to help prevent Alzheimer's. Number 5, active body. Keep fit. And the more, like dancing, balancing, climbing up mountains, anything where you've got your body has to work out balance and coordination is particularly good. Juggling is fantastic, for example. And active mind, so keep learning. Retiring is bad news. You want to keep learning. So keep coming to the wonderful webinars that ANH do, read stuff, get informed. And then we call it sleep and calm. That basically, what does an animal do after you take your dog for a walk? They sleep. So sleep is how the brain recovers. Reducing stress is terribly important. Put those 8 together, and really you can dementia-proof both your diet and your lifestyle. And one of the wonderful but tragic things about this disease is it doesn't favor the poor or the rich. It strikes everywhere. We are seeing super bright people completely, going down this horrible place. You do not need, this is so important. I watched Professor Linus Pauling, twice Nobel Prize winner, die in his 90s, sharp as a razor. I watched Dr. Eben Hoffer take 2 weeks off work as a psychiatrist, again in his 90s. I just interviewed the wonderful Professor Michael Crawford, who's soon to turn 94. He has literally just worked out through quantum physics, something that no one has been able to solve, which is how do we see? How do the photons hit our eye, turn into the precise image that we are seeing in color? He's worked it out. He's 94. The average woman in the EU will spend 14 years unable to climb 10 steps, right? And we go, shocker, really, I better keep fit. I better use my legs, keep my legs strong. As I get older, you need a bit more protein, you need a bit more resistance work and so on. But you never think it's inevitable. We watch people in Okinawa in Japan, doing Tai Chi and stuff, well into their hundreds. So we think it's not inevitable. It's just have to work a bit harder when you're older. Now, exactly the same thing is happening. In our group, we have Dr. David Perlmutter, genius neurologist, 6 times New York Times, best-selling author. We have Mark Hyman. We have Professor from Rutgers University, who's really the homocysteine king. We've got Rob Lustig from the University of California. He's our sugar daddy. We've got very soon to be Associate Professor Tommy Wood from the University of Washington, who's our sort of active lifestyle, real brilliant, scientist, systems thinker. We've got Professor Bill Harris, the leading guy on omega-3. We've got Dr. Simon Dial, the leading guy on brain fats in the UK. We've got Dr. Bill Grant on vitamin D. We've got Dr. Christina Curtis from UCL, who's about behavior change. How do we actually change behavior? We have Dr. Celeste Yeager who is one of the best neuropsychometric testers. Even the drug companies use her to, set up how they actually measure things. We've got Professor David Smith, former second in charge at Oxford Medical School. We've got Professor Stephen Cunnane, who's the leading man in ketotherapeutics, Dr. Georgia Eade from Harvard. We have Dr. Chris Palmer, whose brilliant book, Brain Energy, about mitochondria and the sort of metabolic mayhem that's going on in the brain. We have Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's done some fantastic work in the Alzheimer's field. We have Dr. Sabine Donnet here in the UK, a superb practitioner. We have Dr. Victoria Sampson, the functional medicine dentist. And I know that I will have missed out many wonderful people, because we've actually got a team in China as well, headed by Dr. Richard Cheng, who are launching this there, and in Japan with Dr. Atsuo Yanagisawa. So we launch in the UK, in the US, and in China and in Japan. The scientists of the world are united. That's the point. The evidence is overwhelming. Every single one of these top world-class professors, scientists, doctors, psychiatrists, neurologists, neuroscientists are working on this campaign, not only for nothing, right? Because they know that this is the only way forward, but they've actually all chipped in $500 as well to enable us to build the website and all the rest of it. And what we're asking you, the public, to do, spread the word, go to alzheimersprevention.info, do the test, it's 3 minutes, watch the films, get informed, but then there's a little sort of ice bucket challenge, which I'd like you to do, Rob, as well. But you mustn't fall off your bicycle, because I know you've done that a few times. It's very bad. But basically, we're asking people to just make a selfie, a sort of 30-second video of something that they do that helps prevent dementia, something. We had one guy, he's paragliding. He says, I paraglide to help prevent Alzheimer's. It uses my mind and body. A fellow who was diagnosed with mixed dementia, Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, couldn't even find the loo in his own house, had no concept of time, as in tomorrow, has now planted his whole garden. He's back on the computer. He's joined a Morris dancing group, and he says, I go foraging. It engages my mind and my body. That's what I do to help prevent Alzheimer's. So we are inviting the public and all your wonderful followers and all your team to just think of something, whether it's flossing your teeth or this, that fits into those 8. You take the film, you go on the website, you upload it, we'll frame it for you and send it back, and then you share it. And in this way, we want to get the message out to thousands and thousands and thousands of people until we change this paradigm away from, I don't want to change any of my habits, I'm just waiting. And then one day you slip into dementia, and then you go, is there a drug? Doctor, is there a drug? And then you give your money because you feel so bad when your relative dies of this awful, awful disease. You give your money to one of these charities who actually are not doing anything to reverse this problem. And I've just sort of witnessed 4 funerals of super bright people, all from dementia. And I wrote a little poem, which was, what's it all about? All these people checking out, whole lives dematerialized, years of memories erased, one way out of here filled with anxiety and fear, empty cells upon the shore, a life not worth living for, the product of the human race, rich in wealth but lost in space, or a race for profit. What a disgrace. And it is a disgrace. We have the answer right now. It is not expensive. It is not difficult. We have it. No one denies it. We have not had a single criticism of anything that we have said. We know how to prevent Alzheimer's. And now it's up to us to do it and share that information with the people we love, because it is not going to come to you from your doctor. It's not going to come to you from the NHS. It's a tragedy that these scientists, like Professor David Smith, have spent a whole life doing immaculate science, published in amazing journals. So then the second point was, what's the point of a randomized controlled trial? And the answer is, if it's done well enough, to then say, okay, we can spread this out across the population. We are going straight to the population. We want in 2 years to have tested 1 million people, which is twice the size of the UK Biobank. So go online, do the test. It's free, not just for you, but literally for humanity. Make the changes you can. We'll be tracking them because you come back and fill in your questionnaires. If you wish to, because it costs, not a lot, but it costs. Do the test. This is a blood test that will measure homocysteine, omega-3, vitamin D, HbA1c, all in one. The data goes into the computer. If you've had the tests, like you know your vitamin D, just put it in the questionnaire. And in this way, we are tracking in the world's biggest prevention study for the people, by the people, funded by the people, so we can actually show, beyond a shadow of a doubt, what are those perfect combinations of changes that means you may never lose your mind. You may lose your beautiful skin, organs may start to, break down, but you don't need to lose your mind. And Dr. Abraham Hoffer, he took 2 weeks off work at the end of his life. 4 days before his death, he said, I'm not feeling very good. 2 days before his death, he checked into the local hospital. He didn't have dementia or diabetes or cancer or heart disease. But in the last 48 hours, his organs just slowed down. He had no drugs, no pain, died at peace in his mid-90s, 2 weeks off work. That is absolutely available to all of us. Do not buy into this completely untrue thing, which is that dementia, Alzheimer's is just a natural consequence of the aging process. We're seeing a lot of it because people are living longer. It's not true. We know in the last 4 years, it's actually reversed. People are living shorter, not longer.
Absolutely. Let's just get out there and do it. The information is there, really important that we see as much engagement. This is citizen science, citizen-funded science. The experts are unified. We've had this idea of follow the science. Mm-hmm. This is a case of follow the science, but it depends whose science. This is the real science. Obviously, the charities, pharma companies, governments are on a different track. But Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. We will all work together to get the word out. I have already submitted my ice bucket challenge, and I was on a bicycle and I didn't crash. So there you go. Okay, Patrick, thank you so much, and we'll get the word out.
Thank you. All the best to you and all the Alliance for Natural Health supporters. It's such an important thing that you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.